Hey everyone, welcome back to part 3 of my 3-part mini-series on the distinction between stress, anxiety, and nervousness. These are terms that everybody gets confused at some point, but also misuses them either for the sake of dramatics or they just simply don't understand the definitions well enough to truly express what they're going through or what they're feeling. So last week, as a recap, 2 weeks ago, as a recap, we talked about stress as the sense of pressure that you feel. So it's not only just this like physiological state of stress, but it's a combination of the stress response that you typically feel when you're anxious, triggered by this amount of pressure, kind of like this environmental umbrella pressure kind of pushing down on you at the same time while you're feeling that sense of anxiety. That's why stress feels so much bigger. And then last week we talked about anxiety and this new perspective on anxiety as a warning sign, warning you that there's some kind of threat to either your well-being or your health or your homeostasis, or basically on the most fundamental level what you expected from your day. If you get into a car accident, you don't really expect to do that, but it causes a lot of anxiety because it was a shock and it's definitely a threat to your well-being. And so it creates that stress response. This week we're going to be talking about nervousness. Now this is one of the oldest ones in the book, because before I ever learned the words stress or anxiety or anxious, I learned what nervous meant. Growing up in school, having to give presentations, or on sports teams, having to step out for a big game or nervous how to perform, I learned what nervousness was early on. This like kind of burning, yearning discomfort in my stomach about this, and it was uncomfortable. But if you think about the things that make you nervous and you ask, why do those things make you nervous? You realize that these are things that that you care a lot about. You care a lot about. A lot of people who are giving a best man toast or maid of honor toast, they care a lot about doing that. Care a lot about doing well. They want to perform. They also want to respect who they're performing for. Same thing about stepping onto a soccer field in a championship game. A lot is at stake. A lot of people are watching. It took a lot of work to get up there. There's a lot of pressure to get to that final game, and you want to win. So there's stakes involved, but you care about it. One of the first videos that I filmed for this YouTube channel was presenting a new perspective of nervousness, a new definition of it, in the sense that it's not only just what the classic thing that you hear from people, that you're nervous about something because you care about it, but it adds this next piece about accountability, where because of the fact that you've gotten to this point where this thing makes you nervous, it means that you have reached this certain level that if you achieve that spot, you're then ready to go for the next level. And that can be scary. That can be nerve-wracking, because achievement of this thing, this level that makes you nervous, getting to that certain game means what you have to do next, shows you what you have to do next. So there's not only this sense of like personal engagement in nervousness, but there's this also burning kind of tangible angst about what it means next, what the next step is that you're probably going to be nervous about as well. But as I said last week, there is a positive to all three of these experiences. And the positive of nervousness is that it's a signifier. It indicates for you that you've made it to a certain level. You've worked really hard to get to a certain game in the playoffs or a certain level at work, and you're nervous because you're like, okay, now I have to maintain this. Now I have to win the game, or now I have to stay at this level or go for the next level. So it's like, in this dark and twisted and uncomfortable way, it's like a celebration of where you've made it and where you've come from. The nervousness about the next step shows you everything that you've done to get there. So in that way, like anxiety, nervousness is not evil, but again, it could be but the trigger is the thing that we associate with pain and discomfort. And don't get me wrong, all of these experiences are very uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good to have this kind of burning in your stomach that makes you almost want to be sick. Same with anxiety. You don't want to have this flush, intense, burning sensation go through your entire body all the time, nor do you want the sense of pressure and the feeling that everything's weighing down on you that stress can give you. But the purpose of those sensations is important to keep in mind. The purpose of them are to warn you and keep you vigilant, not vigilant, vigilant and attentive to what's going to come next or what you should do next. Like with anxiety, it always compels you towards some kind of action. You can avoid the discomfort of nervousness in the short term by choosing not to play in the game or to choose not to keep pushing for that promotion at work. Or you can really lean into that, still step onto the field, still speak up at work, and push through the negative experience in order to get a longer term and lasting positive experience out of it. So to recap all 3 weeks of these, and I might discuss a little bit more about the 3 things in general next week, but just to recap the 3 things, they come down a ladder of intensity and magnitude. If you think about the overall magnitude of stress, it's very overwhelming. It feels really big. It feels like the pressure's coming in from the outside world, and you can't really tell what it's directed at. You can't really tell what it's specific or specifically targeted to. Now with anxiety, it's a little bit different. You can understand the threat a little bit better, but still the anxiety, the stress response that you feel is huge, and it can go through your whole body and it becomes really intense. So the trigger is more specific, and it's like typically one thing, but the reason why that trigger is so threatening to you it makes it much bigger of an uncomfortable experience. Now, finally, with nervousness is typically directed toward one specific event or goal you have, or little experience or little trigger that you care about and you're nervous about how it's going to go. And so it's pretty easy to link up the trigger with that, but it's still important to question, why does that trigger make you so nervous? So again, I may touch on this in a future episode, but the main point is that stress is the biggest, anxiety is a little bit lower, but still a really intense experience. Nervousness is the smallest, and they're all to the proportional sizes of triggers. They're all caused by proportional sizes of triggers. So the reason I wanted to share all of this with you is for you to just think about the difference between those triggers. Think about the range and the spectrum of those triggers that cause those different feeling states in your life. And I want to know, how are they different in your life? What things cause you stress versus what things cause you anxiety? And then what things make you nervous? Most likely they're going to be really different things if you really zoom in, right? They might seem similar on the higher level, but as soon as you zoom in more, the reasons why they cause those different experiences will be different. And what this will do is this will help you categorize how you can respond to those different triggers. Once you identify 3 different triggers, you get to do something about it. You get to do different things. It's not just one solution meets all and you're trying to find that one solution, and it's really hard and you get even more stressed. So being able to understand your triggers in these 3 different areas of your life can actually lead to you creating a menu of how to deal with each of those triggers differently and much more easily and quickly and comfortably. So that's what I'd like to leave you with today. Please let me know your thoughts on these subjects, if you disagree with anything I've shared, or if you just don't like the fact that any of these things could be positive and helpful. but I'd also love to know what your triggers are for either stress, anxiety, or nervousness. So feel free to share them in the comments or just message me directly. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for a new video every single week.